Welcome to Deep Dive Conversation on Chapter 4 from a previously discussed dystopian novel Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. You can find the other chapters on this channel.
Yeah, chapter 4, it really starts to dig into the personal side of things, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. This chapter gives such a compelling look at the social structure and the values of this future London. It does this by throwing us right into the very different internal worlds of key characters.
Right. We see Lenina, who's, well, she's very much the product of her conditioning.
Exactly. And then you contrast her with Bernard, who feels so alienated, like a total outsider.
And Helmholtz, too, with that sort of intellectual searching he's doing.
Yeah, that restlessness. It's a fantastic way to examine the themes, the conditioning, the rigid hierarchy, and just how much individuality is suppressed.
It really feels like a critical point in the book. We've seen the big picture of the world state, but now we start seeing the cracks.
No personal cracks.
Those little fissures appearing in that, seemingly perfect surface of engineered happiness.
It feels less about the grand systems in this chapter and much more about how individuals actually experience those systems.
And sometimes resist them, even if unconsciously.
Precisely. How they live it or, push against it.
Okay, so let's start, maybe, with Lenina. In the lift, early on.
Good place to start.
She's surrounded by these alpha males she's involved with, and her thoughts are quite revealing.
They really are. Dear boys, charming boys.
But then immediately it's like, snap, onto these really superficial physical details. George Edsall's ears, Benito Hoover being too hairy.
It tells you so much about the conditioning, doesn't it? This focus on physical perfection isn't just skin deep.
No, it seems to actually filter how they even perceive one another. It's not just aesthetics.
Exactly. And you wonder if it stops any real connection from forming. It's all based on this narrow, manufactured idea of what's desirable.
Constantly reinforced, you have to assume.
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
Through hypnopaedia, through social pressure, everything.
So then Lenina goes up to Bernard, and it's this very public invitation to New Mexico. Yeah, right out there in the lift.
It almost feels a bit, I don't know, performative, like she's trying to show off how unconventional she is, maybe even wind up Henry Foster a bit.
Could be. It's hard to tell her exact motives, but it's definitely public.
But Bernard's reaction is the key thing here. He's so embarrassed. He wants privacy.
Which is completely alien to her way of thinking.
Right. That contrast is stark. What strikes you most about that?
Well, it's Lenina's total inability to even, register his discomfort. She's so conditioned to casual relationships, public displays. The idea of wanting privacy for something like that probably doesn't compute.
It doesn't fit the program.
Not at all.
No.
But for Bernard, wanting that privacy, it hints at something deeper, doesn't it? A vulnerability, maybe a rejection of how casual everything is.
And that internal comparison he makes, comparing it to a dirty joke about parents.
Oh, that's powerful. It just underlines how deeply alienated he feels from a society where, natural birth and family are literally taboo subjects, shameful things.
Yet any real personal connection feels exposed, almost forbidden for him in that setting.
Definitely.
And then we get that quick moment with the Epsilon minus liftman.
Ah, yes.
So simple, but so effective. His pure joy just, woof! And then instantly, that robotic obedience to the loudspeaker going down.
It's such a stark picture of the caste system, isn't it? And the conditioning.
Absolutely. That simple joy, almost like a child's,
Yeah.
followed by just instant, unquestioning obedience.
It really hammers home how effective the conditioning is, especially at the lower levels.
Yeah,
His limited world, his focus just on the immediate.
compared to the alphas in the lift with him.
Exactly. A massive gulf. It's a perfect snapshot of how hypnopaedia, that sleep teaching, shapes their whole reality, their capacity for thought.
Okay, so they get to the roost, and Huxley's descriptions are great here. The warm afternoon, the aircraft humming by.
Creates a real atmosphere. Technologically advanced, but controlled.
And Bernard notices the, quote, beauty of it all. He seems genuinely affected by the natural world, or what passes for it there. But Lenina, her immediate reaction is simply perfect for obstacle golf.
Yes. It's almost funny, but it says so much.
It's a total clash of perspectives.
A perfect summary of their different values, really. Bernard seems to have this maybe lingering capacity for appreciating nature just for itself. Perhaps his conditioning isn't quite as complete.
Or maybe it manifests differently.
Possibly, but Lenina immediately filters it through this lens of, manufactured fun, social activities, utilitarianism almost.
Nature's just a backdrop for the games.
Exactly. Not something to appreciate on its own terms.
And then she just breezes off to meet Henry. Doesn't seem to notice or care that she's leaving Bernard looking. Well, the book says he has an expression of pain.
That phrase really lands, doesn't it? It highlights his loneliness, his longing for something more than these casual hookups.
He wants a real connection, you feel.
Definitely. Something the society and certainly Lenina's conditioning just doesn't allow for easily. It's quite poignant, actually. Shows the emotional hole beneath the surface.
So then Benito Hoover turns up.
Benito. Mr. Cheerful.
Totally oblivious, right? And his immediate fix for Bernard's obvious gloom is Soma.
Of course. Take his Soma holiday.
It's almost a parody of the whole world state approach to negative feelings. Just drug him away.
Benito is the perfectly conditioned citizen, isn't he? He's genuinely good-natured because, unhappiness has basically been conditioned out of him.
Or the capacity for recognizing it in others, maybe.
That too. And his instant suggestion of Soma just perfectly shows how society relies on drugs to manage emotions. Sadness is just wrong. An illness to be fixed chemically.
And the fact he says he never needs it himself.
Just reinforces how perfectly integrated he is. He accepts everything.
And Bernard just bolts. He leaves abruptly.
Which naturally just confirms Benito's suspicions.
Must have been alcohol in his blood surrogate.
It's that vicious cycle for Bernard, isn't it? People think he's different, maybe because of some rumor about his conception.
Right, the alcohol theory. So they treat him differently, or explain his behavior that way, which makes him act more withdrawn or awkward, which then proves their theory.
Exactly. His perceived physical difference marks him out. The rumors are just a convenient way for the normal people to explain why he doesn't quite fit, and him running off just reinforces it all. More isolation.
Okay, let's shift to Lenina and Henry's flight.
Yeah.
The efficiency thing is noticeable again, even being 4 minutes late gets a mention.
Punctuality matters. Everything runs on schedule.
And the view from the helicopter,
Wow.
looking down on London. The descriptions of the different caste colors, khaki for deltas, the specific recreational facilities for each group.
It's a really powerful visual of the total control, isn't it? Color-coded casts, standardized fun, no room for spontaneity.
Or individuality. And Lenina's reaction to the color, khaki.
Her hypnopaedia prejudice, just an automatic conditioned aversion.
It shows how deep those social divisions run, literally built into their subconscious.
Absolutely.
And as they fly over the television corporation factory, they see the Gamma girls, the semi-morons working. And Lenina just casually says, "I'm glad I'm not a Gamma."
Oof, yeah. That just drives home the internalized hierarchy.
Even in this supposedly happy, stable society, there's this deep-seated sense of better than.
Totally. The conditioning works perfectly to maintain that. Everyone knows their place, and the higher castes definitely feel superior. That casual comment reveals just how effective it is at stopping any real empathy or solidarity across castes.
Okay, now we get deeper into Bernard's own head. His internal monologue, it's pretty raw.
It really is. You get that sense of paranoia, like he feels pursued, even by well-meaning people like Benito.
He's frustrated with them, but he's also frustrated with Lenina, isn't he? For just being Lenina.
Yeah.
For being exactly how she was conditioned to be.
Yes, it's like he wants something from her, from the world, that it's simply not designed to give. He's trapped.
His desire for something different keeps bumping up against the reality of their society.
And that internal monologue really lays bare the psychological cost of being an outsider there. He knows he's different. He knows people see him differently, maybe judge him for his size.
And it creates this self-feeding loop of alienation.
Exactly. He longs for connection, especially with Lenina, but he's also disappointed by her conventionality. He wants authenticity in a world built on artifice.
And he envies the easy confidence of guys like Henry and Benito, who just fit in so smoothly.
That envy really underscores his own feelings of inadequacy, his insecurity.
Then we meet Helmholtz Watson.
Helmholtz, a fascinating contrast to Bernard.
Physically, he's everything Bernard isn't. Alpha plus, impressive. But he's got his own problem. He's a little too able.
Right, his mind is too sharp, too creative for the box the world state wants him in.
So his isolation comes from a different place than Bernard's.
Exactly. Bernard seems rooted in a physical perceived defect, Helmholtz's in mental excess. But the result is similar. They both feel apart.
Which really highlights how intolerant the world state is of any significant difference, physical or mental.
Precisely. Individuality itself is the problem. Conformity is the goal.
And Helmholtz is starting to wake up to this, isn't he? He's realizing the standard pleasures, the career success,
Yeah.
it's all feeling like second bests to him.
That's a huge realization in a society built entirely on those surface-level pleasures and instant gratification.
It really challenges the whole foundation, the idea that this engineered happiness is enough.
He's starting to feel a void that soma and casual sex can't fill.
And you see that when he politely turns down those three women who approach him.
Yeah, charming girls, but he's just not interested in that right now.
His focus has shifted inwards. He's grappling with something else.
Exactly. He's becoming more introspective, seeking something more, even if he doesn't know what it is yet.
He tries to explain it to Bernard, doesn't he? This feeling of having something important inside him, something to say.
But not knowing what it is, or how to say it within the limits of their language, their culture.
He's frustrated with writing jingles and slogans, basically. Catchy
Uh-huh.
phrases about community sings.
It speaks volumes about the creative and intellectual starvation, doesn't it? He feels the power of words, but he's forced to use them for trivialities.
He wants words that pierce, he says. Words with real meaning.
And that's just not allowed or even conceived of, really, in their world. Genuine expression is dangerous.
There's that interesting moment, too, where Bernard suddenly gets paranoid, thinks he hears someone listening at the door.
Yes. And Helmholtz sort of shares that flicker of unease.
It hints at this growing awareness, maybe, that being different, thinking differently, it might not be safe.
It could be seen that way. A subconscious understanding that they're deviating from the norm, and that deviation could attract unwelcome attention in such a tightly controlled place.
And then the chapter ends by really contrasting their reactions. Bernard falls into self-pity,
Yeah, feeling sorry for himself, wanting sympathy.
while Helmholtz's discomfort seems more internal, more about this intellectual puzzle he can't solve.
Precisely. Bernard's looking outwards for validation or pity. Helmholtz is wrestling with this profound inner sense of dissatisfaction, this yearning for meaning he can't yet grasp.
So chapter 4 really pulls back the curtain, doesn't it? Gives us this crucial look under the shiny surface of the world state.
It really does. We see the tensions, the first real signs of individual discontent bubbling up.
It moves beyond just describing the society and gets into the personal psychological cost of living there.
Definitely. You start to see that this stability, this engineered happiness, comes at a massive price for individual fulfillment, for real human connection.
And seeing Lenina's conformity side by side with Bernard's alienation and Helmholtz's searching, it forces you to ask questions.
Big questions about what happiness really is. Can it be engineered, or does it require the very things the society stamps out?
Like individuality, real emotions, difficult thoughts.
Exactly. And the shared feeling of being other that Bernard and Helmholtz start to recognize in each other.
Yeah, even though it comes from different places for each of them.
It definitely plants a seed, doesn't it? A hint of potential connection, maybe even future resistance against all that conditioning.
It feels like the start of something potentially disruptive down the line.
It could well be. Their individual cracks might start to join up.
So let's leave you with this to think about. What does this chapter suggest about the nature of true happiness and fulfillment?
And how does the world state's control over emotions and individuality ultimately limit human potential? Does it eliminate it or just warp it?
Those are the big questions this chapter throws up, really challenging that idea of a manufactured utopia.
It strongly suggests true fulfillment needs exactly what the world state removes: individuality, the full range of feelings, freedom to question.
Thank you for joining us again, and we look forward to discuss the next chapter. Please click subscribe and like us to discover more books this fascinating way.